Okay. Hey guys, so I've got Nick from Nick Cheadle Fitness with me today, and we're going to talk about his philosophy on nutrition and if it fits your macros and flexible dieting, basically. So first up, we've got some questions from some of the girls, but would you be able to just first off introduce yourself a little bit, Nick, and I guess your philosophy on nutrition in general?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Ed. I've been a PT now for about almost 6 years, and I've been running my own business, Nick Cheadle Fitness, for pretty much that period of time. My philosophy, I guess, is very much that of a sustainable lifestyle and a sustainable approach to training and nutrition. So it's not about the types of foods that you're eating, it's more about the actual nutritional content of the food. Maintaining a lifestyle that is very much flexible so that you can actually fit your training and your diet into your life rather than having them ultimately dictate how your life goes, basically.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. So first up, we've got some questions. There were actually a heap of questions, so I'll see what we can get through, just a few of them.
That's cool.
Um, so Renee was asking basically probably a very general question for people that don't really know much about nutrition, but basically what are your macros and why would you track them? Why is it important to track them?
Okay, so macronutrients are protein, carbs, and fats, basically. So they're the essential, um, I guess, components that provide us with energy. Okay, now obviously the body sees different macronutrients and uses different macronutrients for different things. Um, for instance, protein is obviously predominantly used for muscle growth and repair, whereas carbohydrates, for instance, are the main source of energy for the body. So if we can control the level of intake of each, we can essentially plan to improve. We can look at regulating our intake and look at increasing performance and changing body composition through maintaining those numbers and keeping things consistent. Essentially, um, I guess it's a little bit more important to do that rather than just watching your calories, to ensure that you are getting enough protein to ensure that you're building muscle or maintaining muscle, whereas sort of basic calorie control is just essentially weight loss. Whereas when we want to look at fat loss and building and retaining muscle, we want to have a little bit of a closer look at the breakdown of the calories that we're getting.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What would you say? So you spoke then about weight loss and fat loss. What would you say is the difference in your opinion?
Okay, so calories in versus calories out is ultimately going to determine whether or not you lose or gain weight. Now, obviously, when we're doing that, we want to make sure it's the right weight. Nobody wants to lose muscle. That's very hard to build. So weight loss is essentially the scale coming down. Fat loss is the scale coming down in the right way whilst maintaining as much muscle mass as possible. So it's definitely a more optimal approach to concentrate on fat loss, losing weight very slowly to preserve as much muscle mass as possible. Um, and really, I mean, as I said, if you can control your intake in such a fashion, then you can do that. Anybody can lose weight on a starvation diet, but the trick is sustainable weight loss and doing it so that you can retain as much muscle mass as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. And like, there's no point really having a number on the scale say something if you've got no muscle, like you said, or you don't look the way that you want to look. I'd rather look
Exactly.
better and have a higher number on the scales and look like crap.
Yeah, exactly. The scales only tell you a number at the end of the day. If you're not happy with how you're looking, then it really doesn't matter all that much. All the scales should be used to do is to determine the rate at which you're progressing and assist you with, I guess, changing your food or tweaking your approach to your nutrition to make sure that you aren't losing weight too quickly. Typically,
Yeah,
if you do begin to lose weight too quickly, sort of more than half a kilo-ish per week, you probably want to rein things back a little bit because that's when the body can definitely tap into some muscle stores
yeah,
for energy. And that's when you can see that breakdown of tissue.
yeah, yeah. And usually when you lose it too fast, you just put it all back on anyway, don't you?
Well, that's the thing. Low-calorie dieting over longer periods of time, whilst effective in the short term, over longer periods of time can have quite a severe effect on metabolism. and can suppress it quite badly. So whilst it is possible to lose weight in the short term on a low-calorie diet, the issue then becomes what happens when you reach your goal weight and you want to start adding calories back in. Chances are your body isn't going to be able to cope with those additional calories straight away.
Yeah.
So thus starts a very tedious and slow process of reintroducing calories so as to avoid excess weight gain.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah,
definitely
cool.
you want to drop weight on as much food as possible while still getting the fat loss job done.
Yeah, exactly. No one wants to be starving.
No. Yeah, I'm eating too much food and losing weight, said nobody ever.
Cool. So Monica had a couple of questions. So the first one, she said, do you consider anything broader into flexible dieting rather than just calories? So, for example, she was saying that I think she's seen some photos of yours on your page actually of is it the skinny cow? Is
Yeah.
that yeah? And she said for her that looks like a chemical shitstorm, and she wouldn't be able to eat it because she's got some intolerances, lactose and things like that. So for her, what the ingredients in the food is really important for her. And I guess some people could see if it fits your macros, could see that as, oh, well, I can just eat whatever I want kind of thing. So what's the difference between, I guess, tracking your calories, but then not, do you feel that people fall into the trap of, well, I can just eat what I want, or is there a way around that?
Okay, so firstly, I guess I'm really not a fan of the term if it fits your macros because I feel that there are too many people in the industry that take that term and use it in the wrong manner. And
Yeah,
they use it to the extreme and basically have it as an excuse to eat as much junk food as possible throughout the day. I much
yeah,
prefer the term flexible dieting, which implies that if it does fit your macros, sure, you can eat it, provided that you're still meeting nutritional guidelines. So, as with any diet, if you're intolerant or don't respond well to a certain food, then I would never recommend you eat it.
yeah,
No, that's just out of the question. If you're lactose intolerant, avoid lactose. Um, that being said, if you're satisfying nutritional requirements, and the ones that I typically recommend along with flexible dieting to all my clients are sort of 1 to 2 servings of fruit per day, 3 to 4 servings of veggies per day, meeting fiber requirements, as well as your macros. Outside of those guidelines, I'm more than happy to see my clients eat pretty much whatever they want to. But
yeah,
again, if they find that there are some foods that they tend not to agree with or they feel just don't sit right when they do eat them, then by all means, avoid them at all costs. There's no reason to be eating a skinny cow ice cream if it's not going to sit well the next day. So,
yeah,
but I mean, as long as you are satisfying nutritional requirements and eating your fair share of nutrient-dense foods, there's no reason you can't eat a donut or whatever. It's not going to take away from that good nutrition that you've already fed your body.
yeah.
It's going to assist with keeping you on point mentally, as well as satisfying a short-term craving, provided you can do that whilst staying within your guidelines and meeting your macros.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So I guess from what you just said, as a bit of a recap, I guess the difference between the flexible dieting and if it fits your macros, people could just go, well, I could just eat macas all day, every day, if it fits into my guidelines for my fat, carbs, and protein. But flexible dieting's more get your fruit and veggies in, get your fiber, get everything you need in a good balanced diet whilst also still tracking your macros, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, anybody that is suggesting that we can just sit back as flexible dieters and eat cookies or macas all day is doing nothing but demonstrating how little they understand the concept.
Yeah,
In order to eat McDonald's all day, every day, you would have to be able to handle so much fat, which nobody really can. I mean, if I'm lucky, even on the intake that I'm on currently, which is still fairly high
mm,
when you consider other people and what they might be eating, there's no way I could fit more than maybe a cheeseburger or two into my macros, and even then, the rest of my day would be severely compromised
yeah,
just in order to get that meal in, because nobody is eating 200, 300 grams of fat per day.
yeah,
Nobody can afford to do that
yeah.
while staying on plan. I mean, there may be some genetic freaks out there who are eating 6, 7, 8,000 calories plus a day, but there aren't many of them.
Yeah,
Um, so anybody that says that sort of stuff is is basically just throwing it out there that they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah,
In my
yeah.
yeah.
And I think you and a couple of other people that I've seen have shown on their pages as well. Like, you show that you eat pancakes and things like that, but you also say, look, I don't eat this every day or all day every day. This is the basis of my food is your lean proteins, your carbs and your fats, like beef and chicken and your nuts and all your fats and all that kind of stuff, but you still do enjoy those other foods as well. But I think some people kind of would twist that sometimes and go, oh, well, Nick eats pancakes, so I can eat pancakes every day, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm always cautious of setting that example, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I'm a big foodie. You know, I love my food, and I'd be lying if I said that I didn't like to create delicious meals.
Yeah.
That being said, the majority of my foods, as you say, are those that typically most would consider clean. Um,
Yeah.
I do eat whole, unprocessed foods the majority of the time, and most days I will focus on satisfying my nutritional guidelines early in the day, so that when I do get home after work or whatever, if I feel like it, I can pretty much eat whatever I want within my macros because I've already eaten my 3 to 4 servings of veg, my 1 to 2 servings of fruit. I've met my fiber. I've been drinking my water. It's game on.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't have to train later that day, so I can have a bit of sugar and not worry about potentially an energy crash or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that way I can enjoy myself. I can stay on track and wake up the next day knowing that I haven't broken my diet. I've eaten a pancake and I've eaten some ice cream and I'm good to go.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. And my whole philosophy around that as well is that if you do, and I'm sure you agree, that if you do allow yourself to eat those kind of things on a regular basis, then you're not going to go and feel like you're missing out, and you're not going to binge as well. So if you have a little bit of chocolate, for example, every now and again, you're not going to want to eat a whole family block of Cadbury's and feel like crap afterwards because you're
Exactly.
allowing it into your day to day or week by week.
Exactly. It's amazing when you remove the restriction, you generally remove the craving. Maybe not immediately, but over time you definitely remove the craving. I've had several clients text me. One in particular, not too long ago, actually sent me a message saying, "I woke up wanting to eat chocolate today. I had a tablespoon of Nutella. Now I don't want any more. What have you done to me?" It's like, well, that's just normal. Like,
Yeah,
most people that don't diet and train don't
yeah,
get those ridiculous binge-like tendencies from periods of restriction where they can't eat their favorite foods. If you
yeah,
can eat theoretically whenever you want, within obviously certain guidelines and so on,
yeah,
then there really is never ever that sort of burning passion to eat an entire tub of Nutella
yeah,
or, as you say, an entire block of chocolate. If you can
yeah,
have a little piece every time, then why would you ever feel the need to eat an entire supermarket worth of junk food?
yeah, yeah. And for me in particular, like I mentioned chocolate because I love chocolate, and I know if I've told myself in the past that I can't have it and I'm being good or whatever, and then I will want to binge on it. And now I can't really eat much Cadbury's or anything like that. I prefer green and blacks because those kind of chocolate with lots of sugar in it, it just makes me feel sick or I get a toothache or whatever. So I guess the other part of that is if you're eating good foods and foods that nourish your body and make you feel good, then the other ones that you kind of that don't make your body feel good, you're not going to want them anyway, or you're going to limit them.
Yeah, and again, having the option and knowing that you can have a little bit here and there if you want it, just
Yeah,
takes the strain off, takes the pressure off.
yeah,
There's no reason to crave something so badly
mm,
if it's readily available all the time.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
get cravings myself now, but it's never I want to eat that so badly that I could eat the entire punnet and I could eat 4 more.
yeah,
I have been there in the past. I know how hard that is to deal with, but
yeah,
since allowing flexibility into my regime, it's changed that entirely. I mean, recently I competed, and typically you look at somebody who goes through a contest diet as somebody who restricts food to no end. I mean, they are probably the pinnacle of restrictive eaters, typically. But for me, I followed flexible dieting principles. I got to my show and I competed and I was happy with how I looked. And then the next day I woke up and it was back to it because I didn't have the burning desire to go to the nearest buffet and spend my $40 or whatever to eat as much food as possible. There was just
Yeah.
no desire to do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I was
cool.
actually my meal out with some friends, and then from then on, it was just straight back into it because there was no need to spend time chasing everything that I hadn't eaten. One,
Yeah.
because I'd eaten it the entire way through my prep, and two, because I didn't have those urges to I guess chase the restrictions that I'd had in the past.
Yeah. And that, in my opinion, that makes you a better role model as a trainer as well because you're not promoting restriction or unhealthy habits. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I was definitely happy. I mean, in comparison to the last two times that I did it, I definitely prefer this method, having to, I could eat ice cream and pancakes through my prep and then not have to worry about serious weight gain as soon as I'd finished competing. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So Monica also asked, so she said, watching everything I put in my mouth has led to disordered eating in the past. She was kind of more that kind of clean eating type thing in the past. So she said, so is flexible dieting for everyone? Can you still have a healthy relationship with food whilst tracking and not have that kind of disordered thinking?
Yeah, absolutely, I think so. I can understand why people may think that there could possibly be some issues with that, but if you're really looking to take your physique to the next level, whatever the types of foods you're eating, you need to remain accountable and you need to look at exactly what you are eating. Whether that be tracking the macros that you're eating or even just the quantities of foods if you want to eat the same stuff every day. But either way, if you do want to take your physique to the next level, you do need to break it down and look at what you're consuming.
Yeah.
That being said, I believe that this is the most readily available, ongoing, and sustainable approach to nutrition just because it doesn't restrict anything. Whilst, yes, it may take 5 to 10 minutes out of my day each day in order to enter my food in and measure it and track it before I consume it. For me, I'm more than happy to swap those 10 minutes a day for foods that I love and results that I love even more.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, cool.
I think as long as you keep things in perspective too. I mean, if you go 10 grams over your carbs, for instance, it's not like the be all and end all. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nobody here that's going to slap you on the wrist. But if you have an idea of what you're eating every day, you know how to change it, you know how to tweak it,
Yeah.
and then you can expect to see results based on the changes that you make. Um, I remember when I first started the whole training and dieting thing and really wanted to take my own physique to the next level, I saw a great picture and all it said was, you can't out-train a bad diet. And for me now, all a bad diet is one that you don't know essentially what it is in terms of what it's giving you. So if you're not tracking, if you're not quite sure what you're eating, how can you really be sure about where you're going to be in a week or in a month or in a year? So
Yeah.
if you're really interested in taking things to the next level, there has to be some element of control. And obviously the more you control, the more you measure, the more accountable you can be and ultimately the better results that you can see too.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just made me think actually, as you've been talking, that I think maybe people that do have some people, and I'm not talking about eating disorders, not to that extreme, but kind of disordered thinking around food. They might be scared of tracking, and I think that's because maybe in the past, if they have counted calories or something like that, it's probably on a very low calorie diet, like 1,200 calories or maybe even less. And there's
Yeah.
obviously restriction there where they're saying, I can't have this, I can't have that. And that's why they've got that disordered thinking around food. Whereas if you're doing it in a way that's healthy, like how you've been talking about with flexible dieting, that would probably eliminate all those kind of disordered thoughts they were having in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Obviously, the more you're eating, the less restriction there is too. But
Yeah,
in saying that, if whilst low-calorie diets are tough, even if you do have to get down to that level, it's still nice having the freedom to be able to train the house down and maybe fit in a little bit of ice cream towards the end of the day, and still know that even though you are eating not very much, if it
yeah,
is necessary, that you can still stay on track and do so.
yeah, yeah, cool. And so there's one more from Monica, and then Erica had a couple of questions. So Monica was asking, how do you come up with the right mix of macros to aim for? So she was asking, and I already know a little bit about this, but I'd love to hear, obviously, your opinion on it. Like, it's not a one size fits all approach, is it? It's different for the
No, definitely
individual
not.
person. Yeah. And
No.
how do you work those numbers out for each person, basically? She was asking.
Okay, cool. Firstly, you never want to use a generic ratio. Basically, when you use, say, a lot of people seem to be keen on the 40-40-20 split, i.e. work out your total calorie intake and then break it up 40-40-20 protein, carbs, and fats. The worst, no, that's not the right way of saying it. The thing about using generic splits is that your protein intake is ultimately going to vary with your calorie intake. There's always going to be an optimal amount of protein to be consumed based on your body composition. So my protein, for instance, doesn't really change. It goes up very slightly when I'm trying to drop weight, and it comes back down again when I'm trying to put weight on. But essentially, it stays within a 20 to 30 gram range. It shouldn't be changing, this sort of much
Yeah.
as your intake grows or decreases. So you really need to work out what your body actually needs and requires. So you need to look at, after you figure out your calorie intake, and I've actually written a blog post on this, on how to calculate your own fat loss diet if you want to check it out.
Okay.
But essentially, once you've got your calorie intake, you need to look at amounts of each macronutrient based on lean body mass, ideally, and if not, then just body weight.
Yeah.
But essentially, the way to work it out is there are multiple equations, and then now what I'll also use is, I guess, my experience with working with a couple of hundred clients, plus dieting history, goals, activity levels, current body composition, stuff like that, in order to tweak those numbers.
Yeah.
I guess if you're just looking to start out, the best advice I could give is to run an equation that you can find, and as I said, I've written a blog post on the article. Get some starting numbers, and then you have to road test them. No
Yeah.
equation is going to be able to take into account your dieting history or your
Yeah.
true activity levels, and chances are, as most people do, you will overestimate how much activity you do,
Yeah.
and then there's a whole bunch of factors that can affect how to work them out. The most important thing is you work them out, you give them a run for their money, and see what happens in terms of your results. Track your weight, track your waist measurements, take photos. Make sure you track to see how they're working for you. And obviously, you can add or decrease the intake from there if you're not quite seeing favourable results.
Yeah. Cool. So just tweak and measure along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's constantly. You have to constantly measure and tweak in order to
Yeah.
make sure that you're seeing the best results possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And just to touch on that as well, what you were saying about measuring, and I guess that's the whole point of this. Like you said before, you're not going to get results with your food or with any area of your life really if you're not measuring. So the same
Yeah,
goes in
that's
business or with your finances or anything. If you just
exactly.
Yeah, if you're spending money all over the place, but you want to save, well, you're never going to save if you're not tracking your budget or where your money's going. So, same
Exactly.
thing with food. And I know recently um, I tracked a few days. The other month, I tracked like 3 days, and I thought I was eating pretty well, and I realized that I wasn't. I wasn't eating anywhere near enough calories and also protein. And I'm probably someone that's got a better idea than kind of the general public, and I still wasn't eating enough. So it's really
Plus, as a
important once
powerlifter,
you.
that's pretty important.
Pardon.
Plus, as a powerlifter, protein's kind of important.
I know. So yeah, once I actually tracked that and put it in my fitness pal, because I'd had soup for like a couple of days in a row for lunch, and soup just isn't enough really if you're just having that. Um, so yeah, I realized that I needed to up it. And unless you've got it there staring in front of you, if you're actually writing it down and you can see those numbers, even more so than just writing in a book or something, because on MyFitnessPal you can obviously see the breakdown there,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
you'll actually know. Whereas if you don't do that, you could think that you're doing pretty well and actually you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's very hard to out-train a bad diet.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So Erica was asking um, how we've kind of touched on this already, I guess, but how would you explain the benefits of carbs to someone who's had success with a no or low carb diet in the past? I think she's been trying to explain this to a couple of her friends and why carbs aren't evil and why they are important, but I think she's not been able to explain it in the right way that her friends are still not believing her, she was saying.
Carbs definitely aren't the enemy. The chances are, I mean, the reason she probably saw results by reducing carbs last time was essentially all she has done is lower her calorie intake.
Yeah,
You can lower
exactly.
your calorie intake without drastically lowering your carb intake as well. Um, taking away your carbs is essentially just one way of reducing your calorie intake. Less calories equals, a better equation in terms of calories in versus calories out.
Yeah,
That's typically all there is to it. Carbs aren't the enemy. If you can eat them while still being in a calorie deficit, absolutely go for it.
yeah,
Absolutely. Carbs are going to give you energy to maintain intensity in the gym, fuel much better sessions, and ultimately give you energy to last through the day as well. There's no
yeah.
reason to avoid them, particularly if you can get them in whilst maintaining a calorie deficit.
Yeah, awesome, cool. And she was also asking about different types of carbs. So she noticed that like oats is fine, but bread kind of bloats her. Or when she's reduced her bread, she's actually lost a lot more weight in the last few weeks. And I did mention to her about the calorie deficit. That's probably why. Is there anything else that you'd add to that?
I guess you can go back to the intolerances side of things.
Yeah,
Some foods you just aren't gonna sit well with some people. And if you can find a food that bloats you and remove it from your diet, then that's probably going to help.
yeah,
You know, there are chances that it maybe just bloated her and that her body couldn't quite digest it as quickly as some other foods, and maybe it was just all in her head that she didn't lose weight that week. I'm not sure, but typically calorie for calorie, there shouldn't be any, too much difference there. But I think if there are some foods that you find just don't sit well with you, definitely look at removing them from your diet and finding what does work for you within your nutritional guidelines and daily goals.
yeah. Awesome, cool. Um, okay, cool. So I was going to say as well. So that's all the questions, but then I've got a few questions as well. So I know sometimes. Oh, that was the other one I was going to ask. I didn't write this one down, but it just came up before from something you said. What about with food timing? And I think from what I know about you, that it's not the most important thing. Like you want to get people tracking first, and don't worry about it too much. But is there any specific best timing to eat your carbs or your protein around kind of training and that kind of thing? I obviously have a general idea, but I think that's a question that comes up quite often for people as well.
Yeah, cool. Meal and nutrient timing is largely going to be irrelevant to body composition. Ultimately, the main thing in terms of physique improvement and body composition change is going to be meeting your daily macronutrient requirements on a
Yeah,
consistent basis. Outside of that, meal and nutrient timing is pretty much a 1 to 2% thing. Obviously, it can affect things like training, mood, intensity in the gym, so how tired and how good you feel throughout the day. Obviously, if you're eating less frequently, then maybe you may get a little bit more tired or that sort of thing. But essentially, it's a very small part of physique improvement and body composition change. As long as you're hitting your daily macros, the rest is, as I said, largely irrelevant.
yeah,
Ideally, you want to be eating pre and post workout in order to make sure that you have enough energy, in
yeah,
reserve to make sure you can bust out a wicked training session. And
yeah,
then, excuse me, obviously after your training session, when your muscles are pretty much most in need of recovery, you can feed them again, ideally. But typically, I recommend sort of 4 to 6 meals per day as an optimal approach, i.e. the best possible approach.
yeah,
But basically, and what I stress to all my clients is that your diet has to work for you, and it has to work for you over a longer period of time. So if that means eating 3 meals a day, then you eat 3 meals a day. If it means
yeah,
you eat 5, 6, 7 meals a day one day, 3 or 4 the next, do whatever you can to hit your macros each day. that's fine too. Okay,
Yeah.
you need to be able to do it on a consistent basis,
Yeah.
and
Cool.
putting stress on things like meal and nutrient timing just isn't worthwhile, in my opinion. Sure, there
Yeah.
is always going to be an optimal approach, but at the end of the day, hitting your daily macros is going to be the most important factor in improving your body composition.
Yeah. Cool. Why do you think 4 to 6 meal? Obviously, you just said that it depends on obviously a person's lifestyle and what works for them. But why do
Yeah.
you think 4 to 6 meals is optimal for you?
4 to 6 meals typically ties in very nicely with muscle protein synthesis. So essentially, every time you eat, I guess the cogs start turning. The cogs that are basically building and repairing muscle tissue start turning. A couple of hours later, they will slowly start to diminish or slowly slow down, I guess. And if you can supplement correctly at that point in time, then you can essentially get the cogs turning back again for another hour or two. And then you can go again sort of 4 hours later. So typically meals every around 4 hours, and depending on how long your days are, you should typically be able to get roughly 4 to 6 meals in per day
Yeah.
as an optimal approach. For
Cool.
me, it's pretty much 4, sometimes 5. Maybe on a weekend, if I've had a lazy Sunday, it'll be 3. Um,
Yeah.
More often than not, it's 4. And as I said, yeah, supplementing correctly will help with that whole muscle protein synthesis thing. But again, that's a 1%, 2% thing. It's not a
Yeah.
necessary. No. Optimal, yeah, sure. But again, optimal isn't everything for everybody.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
Cool.
we're not all trying to win the Olympia. You know?
Not yet. So, and I notice sometimes as well you say about what do you mean by being a strict dieter, not a restricted one?
Okay, so that essentially just obviously every day you've got certain goals, right? You've got your nutritional guidelines such as fruit, veggies, and fiber. Then you've got your macronutrient guidelines, you got your protein, carbs, and fats. Be a strict dieter in the fact that you're meeting all of those requirements every day. Be an unrestricted dieter in the fact that you can get those food sources from wherever you want.
Yep. Awesome. Cool. And with your tracking, so you use MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
Um, uh, is that do you like weigh stuff as well? Do you think it's important to weigh out your food, or do you think it's all right for people to just put in the stuff in MyFitnessPal? I know it might not be as accurate that way, but what do you think is the best way to track?
At the end of the day, if you're, as I said, looking to go to the next level and see genuine physique improvement, you have to measure what you eat, and that definitely includes weighing out your food.
Yeah,
Obviously, there are times where I and people will have to estimate. Obviously, we shouldn't be confined to our own kitchens every day of the week. Sometimes I like to go out for a meal myself as well. And in those times when you can estimate, sure, estimate. But when you have the power to control to the nth degree what you're eating, absolutely take it. Particularly, you know, if you're interested in physique improvement and genuine changes and being as best as you can, then yes, you have to weigh your food. But
yeah,
as I said, it typically takes me about 10 minutes a day for all my weighing, for all my tracking, job
yeah,
done. You know, typically most people stick to the same types of foods day in, day out. MyFitnessPal is pretty great because it typically remembers your most recently used foods.
yeah,
Rarely will people branch out, and even then that adds like maybe 20, 30 seconds to the process to find a new food.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it really doesn't take long to stick something on the scales, let it settle, pop it on your
yeah,
plate. Yeah,
yeah,
3 or 4
cool.
times over, you've got a whole meal, job done.
Yeah. And I've said to myself in the past that it takes too long to put in MyFitnessPal, I can't be bothered. But then I thought, well, it really doesn't take that long, and anything that's worth it, any of your goals that you really want to achieve, is going to take some time. So I think anything that's a priority to you, you're going to take that time out to reach your goals instead of sitting on Facebook or watching TV or driving down to Pizza Hut to grab a pizza or something like
I mean,
10 minutes out
would
of
you
your
rather
day.
spend, yeah,
Pardon?
would you rather spend 5 to 10 minutes per day tracking your food, or would you
Yeah,
rather get on the scales each week frustrated that you aren't seeing results?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess to wrap up a little bit, as an overview, what would you say are the benefits of flexible dieting as opposed to, say, other diets out there? And uh, yeah, I guess just as a recap and a summary for people that are new to all of this.
Look, flexible dieting takes into account the caloric value of food and the world of protein, carbs, and fats. Essentially, that opens up a whole range of avenues in terms of where you can get these food sources from. The typical clean eater is going to eat, largely unprocessed foods because they feel that they're going to assist them in the gym. Whilst that may be true, if they aren't actually taking into account what it is they're eating in terms of protein, carbs, and fats, chances are they're just guessing as well. The thing it does is, as I said, it takes us into the caloric value of food and the world of protein, carbs, and fats, and then that opens up basically any food that we can measure the nutritional content of. Rather than looking at food as a food, we can look at it as protein, carbs, and fats, and each food can be broken down into a certain ratio of each of them, or a certain amount of each of them, and then we can fuel our bodies appropriately. As I said, it gives us flexibility in what we can eat. We no longer have to class foods as good or bad because the body doesn't discriminate. It doesn't see a cheeseburger as a bad food, which means you're ultimately going to store it as body fat. That's completely ridiculous. It sees it as protein, carbs, and fats.
Yeah.
Maybe a few more carbs and fats than, say, a chicken breast with some brown rice and broccoli. But the body still recognizes it as what it breaks it down into. Now, obviously, there are some differences in terms of the types of carbs and the types of fats, but on a macronutrient level and a calorie value level, it's the same.
Yeah. I'll have to get you on another time to do some myth busting.
Bring it on.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much for your time today. I'll share this around and send it out to my list and to my girls.
Cool.
Where can we find out more? Like, can you share like your blog and stuff? Where can everyone find you and read some more on flexible dining?
Yeah, cool. Most of my stuff comes out through Facebook and Instagram, so I'm just Nick Cheadle Fitness on Facebook. You can just search that in the search bar. Same with Instagram, instagram.com/Nick Cheadle Fitness. And then I've also got my blog up on my website, which is nickcheadlefitness.com. There's plenty of articles and plenty of information being posted daily. And you can also sign up for my free information newsletter and get a free introductory guide to flexible dieting if you sign up too.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Well, thanks so much, Nick. And
no worries.
that's really helped everyone out there. Cool.
Too easy.
Thanks.
See ya.